Carla Blickensderfer, a member of the Worldwide Specialist Organization for End User Computing. I've been with Amazon for almost 4 years and have been in various roles in the Amazon Web Services End User Computing organization. I started out as the North America End User Computing Partner Lead, and then I moved into the End User Computing Sales Organization, and now I'm a member of the Worldwide Specialist Organization for End User Computing. Later in the presentation, I will be joined by Jeff Ferris, the Worldwide Technical Leader for AWS End User Computing. Jeff will give us a demonstration of the AWS EC Services. Thank you so much for joining our session today to talk about moving your end users to AWS End User Computing Services. So let's get started. The data center is changing. Today, millions of customers just like you are running solutions on AWS, which is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud. These customers include some of the fastest growing startups, largest enterprises, and leading government agencies who have moved from on-premise data centers to AWS, and they've done so for the following reasons. The elasticity and agility that is gained from AWS versus an on-premise infrastructure is second to none. If you look at most companies' on-premise infrastructure, to get a server typically takes 10 to 12 weeks or more. And then you have to build all the surrounding infrastructure software components like compute and storage, database, analytics, machine learning. Well, in the cloud, you can provision thousands of servers in minutes, so you get from idea to implementation much faster. Another reason the data center is changing is cost optimization. With traditional infrastructure, you have to make decisions like, do I provision on the low side and worry about outages? Or do I build for peak capacity, which may sit unused? In the cloud, you just provision what you need. If it turns out you need less, you stop paying for it. And many companies have a global presence and need to support any country-specific data sovereignty requirements. AWS scales globally. Cloud security at AWS is the highest priority. One of the great things about AWS is that customers inherit all the best practices of the AWS policies, architecture, and operational processes built to satisfy the requirements of our most security-sensitive customers. And finally, AWS's reliability is proven. It's one of the main reasons AWS has grown so fast. We build data centers in multiple geographic regions, as well as across multiple availability zones within each region to offer maximum resiliency against system disruptions, and we design our data centers with significant excess bandwidth connections so that if you have a major disruption or that occurs, there's sufficient capacity to enable traffic to be load balanced to the remaining sites because we want to minimize the impact on customers. Now, not only is the data center changing, the way we work is changing. The globalization of the economy has driven the need to work from anywhere with anyone at any time. Today's workforce is increasingly mobile. People are working remotely, on the go, and moving from one project to the next and collaborating across borders, time zones, and organizations. Organizations are increasingly looking for options for employees to work securely from any location. In fact, 1 in 5 jobs are now being held by contractors. 79% of organizations expect an increase in merger and acquisition activity, and 70% of the workforce is working remotely. And with this, security is becoming increasingly challenging. You're trying to manage a user base that's constantly changing, and the desktops and the notebooks, applications and files and content each user needs, traveling around the globe and outside your network, or even within their homes. Companies want to follow the users without compromising security, especially when 1 in 3 data breaches today are due to lost and stolen devices. Customers tell us that these 3 things, changing the data center, changing the workforce, and increasing security challenges, are what's driving them to move their end user computing to the cloud. In fact, half of all IT decision makers are choosing to move their end user computing to solutions like desktop as a service or VDI, and this is up from 43% just 2 years ago. With the data center changing and the way that we work is changing, why are customers choosing AWS? Organizations are increasingly looking for options for employees to work securely from any location. And whether it's to support work from anywhere, global workforce collaboration, or just to ensure business continuity in the face of disasters, organizations want remote work solutions that they can depend on. Customers are choosing AWS to realize many of the same core AWS benefits that they cannot get from on-premise solutions. So you may be thinking, like what benefits? Moving to the cloud can provide a better user experience by co-locating user desktops, applications, and data. But it goes far beyond that. Increasing the agility to support onboarding and offboarding of contractors and users from around the world is a benefit, in addition to optimizing costs by moving from massive capital expenditures for VDI servers or physical PCs to a pay-as-you-go pricing model. As customers enable remote employees by deploying their solutions in AWS regions across the world, another benefit is improving security due to moving corporate data from on-premise VDI servers and user devices to AWS. And this also improves reliability. Now, let's dive into how these benefits empower end-user computing. Many customers find choosing AWS simply provides a better user experience. You can let users securely work from anywhere in the world with highly responsive experience because your desktop's applications and files are next to your data on AWS. Secondly, customers tell us agility and elasticity are hard to achieve with on-premise VDI or physical PCs. When contractors or new employees start from a merger or acquisition activity, they need their desktops, applications, files, and content as soon as possible. But it takes months to onboard new users sometimes. And when you're buying, imaging, shipping, and supporting devices all over the world, or building out multiple data centers for traditional VDI deployments, this can take time. Instead, with AWS, there's no hardware to purchase or deploy and operate. This lets you securely onboard your contractors and remote employees in hours or days by streaming the desktops, applications, and the content that they need on demand. And you can onboard new users from a merger and acquisition without having to integrate complicated IT environments. And because there's no hardware to purchase, you're able to optimize your costs by paying for what you use when you use it. And it can be especially challenging to forecast how many contractors or remote employees you'll have, or purchase specialized hardware for specialized applications. AWS lets you pay for what you use when you use it. There's no upfront cost for infrastructure, and you no longer purchase and ship desktops around the world, or you don't have to build out VDI servers for peak user capacity that may sit unused. So in many use cases I've discussed, these are global, and that makes it even harder sometimes to provide a great user experience. Because while you're trying to maintain agility, elasticity, and optimizing cost, this can be difficult. Think about contractors you're onboarding in India, or the company you just acquired in Europe, or the remote team that you started in Asia. The complexity multiplies across every country and time zone because traditional solutions require you to build out VDI servers or distribute physical PCs in each region. But with AWS, you can centrally manage your deployments and provide a responsive experience to users across the world because AWS spans across numerous geographic regions, and to do so without negotiating any data center facility contracts. Customers are also choosing AWS due to security because our customers can have their desktops, applications, and data secured on AWS instead of their user devices or on-premise VDI servers. In many cases, solutions will be less complex, require less manual patching, and more easily meet compliance requirements for HIPAA, PCI, SOC, ISO, and more. And IT teams can leverage AWS expertise when securing their environments instead of learning new solutions or tools. When you think about how the data center is changing, the same security isolations that would be found in a traditional data center are included with the AWS, like physical data center security, separation of the network, isolation of the server hardware, and isolation of storage. And finally, reliability. AWS EUC services offer a 99.9% SLA, which we hear is higher than most of our on-premise VDI deployments. So, to recap, customers are choosing AWS EUC services because we give you the agility to respond to the changing needs of your global workforce by being fully managed, pay-as-you-go, reliable, and secure. Instead of spending weeks or months purchasing, building, and securing virtual desktop infrastructure and devices for users such as contractors, remote employees, or have specialized applications or have merger and acquisition activity, you simply deliver what your users need on demand. However, it is important to note that meeting some of our customers are also choosing to do a lift and shift of their Citrix and VMware deployments to AWS. Many customers have built established on-premise VDI deployments over the years with substantial investments in licensing and contracts. And while they may be running on aging hardware that's struggling to support their users, these customers aren't necessarily looking to extend their current VDI to new use cases, but they do tell us that they want to maximize the value of their current investment. Well, AWS lets our customers continue with consistent and familiar experience on optimized infrastructure, whether it's a hybrid solution or a lift and shift. And like I said, it's important to mention, but for the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to focus on the AWS EUC services. So let's talk about the AWS EUC services. Customers are choosing AWS EC Services because we give you the agility to respond to the changing needs of your global workforce by being fully managed, pay-as-you-go, reliable, and secure. Instead of spending weeks or months purchasing, building, and securing virtual desktop infrastructure for devices, for contractors, remote employees, specialized applications, mergers and acquisitions, you just simply deliver what your users need on demand so that they can access from a low-end device or a home device or managed devices like Chromebooks. And we enable this with a suite of products including Amazon WorkSpaces, Amazon AppStream, and Amazon WorkDocs. Amazon WorkSpaces is our desktop as a service that lets users access a full desktop on demand. Amazon AppStream 2.0 is our application streaming service that lets users access distinct applications on demand. And Amazon WorkDocs, well, that's our file storage service that lets users store and access the files they need on demand. So who's using these products today? Well, more than half of the Fortune 500 companies. These logos on this slide represent a variety of use cases to include contractors, remote employees, merger and acquisitions, specialized application support, labs, jump boxes, and knowledge workers. And all of these use cases are from many different industries, like media and entertainment, oil and gas, automotive, state and local government agencies, education, ISV, healthcare, and more. We believe you need more than managed services to be truly agile. Well, this diagram shows how moving from on-premise VDI to VDI on AWS removes hardware management, and moving from VDI to AWS EUC services removes VDI software management. This lets you be more agile and focus less on the undifferentiated heavy lift because even with VDI on AWS, you still have to spend weeks to months building out, tuning, configuring, and operating and optimizing your actual VDI infrastructure with your file shares, your network appliances, and complicated multi-session environments every time your workforce changes. We built AWS EC Services to be fully managed so you have the ability to onboard contractors, remote employees, or even new users from a merger and acquisition in hours or days and deploy specialized applications for users in minutes. You simply integrate your IT, select pre-configured bundles optimized for your specific use cases, and then a few clicks or API codes, deploy what your users need. You manage your images, applications, and users, and we manage the rest. Even with fully managed infrastructure, you need the freedom from those complicated pricing plans, licensing negotiations, and unexpected licensing changes to agilely respond to the changes in your workforce. You can deploy what you need on demand with AWS EC Services because they're fully managed and pay as you go for what you use when you use it. There's no long-term licensing agreements to negotiate with AWS. So this really lets you optimize your costs by only paying for contractors when they're on a project, or by scaling up your workforce during surge periods, or by streamlining specialized application to lower cost device when those specialized capabilities are needed, and by instantly onboarding new users with low friction and ease of processes from your administrators. For more details on the pricing of AWS EUC products, please see our public websites. But to give you an idea of our pricing, Amazon Workspace pricing starts at about $21 per workspace per month, or $7.25 per month plus 17 cents per hour usage fee. Well, that's for most AWS regions. And AWS AppStream 2.0 pricing starts at $4.19 per user per month, plus a 7.5 cents per hour in most AWS regions. You can also bring your existing RDS licenses in order to avoid incurring monthly user fees. Well, Workspaces has two billing models, always on or hourly. And when you're considering hourly versus monthly pricing, there's a break-even point of about 82 hours, depending on the size of the instance that you've assigned to your user. AWS provides the Workspaces Cost Optimizer to take the guesswork out of which pricing model you should choose on a per-user basis. The Cost Optimizer analyzes usage and it converts the running mode of a given workspace to the correct mode. This can also be used to understand the usage patterns of your users for planning purposes. And finally, AWS EUC services are globally available in multiple AWS regions. AWS EUC services go beyond the underlying infrastructure for reliability and security. In fact, many of our services meet multiple security and compliance standards, including HIPAA, PCI, FedRAMP, GDPR, and more. And each service offers a service level agreement commitment of 99.9%. With AWS EC Services, your sensitive company data is no longer flying around the world to contractors, or flowing out of your network with remote employees, or put at risk because of outdated desktops or applications, or even complicated by integrating networks due to a merger and acquisition. You no longer need to build out infrastructure to support all this, but instead, you can focus on providing the exact solution for your users. Well, there are several use cases that I will share with you about how customers are using AWS services to include contractors, remote employees, mergers and acquisitions, specialized applications, and VDI replacements. First of all, let's talk about the typical journey. When it comes to our customer journey with Amazon EUC, we tend to see three different patterns. One, we increasingly see customers migrate from their existing VDI infrastructure and move away from their legacy VDI as they look to accelerate their journey to the cloud. Often, this looks like a desktop replacement using Amazon Workspaces. Secondly, we see companies giving access to 1 to 2 complex applications like SAP or Esri ArcGIS Pro to targeted users through Amazon AppStream 2.0. However, the most common customer journey applies a combination of EUC solutions over time across a set of personas. Well, it often starts with a persona where agility and security are at the top of the requirements, meaning where the workers are most variable in their onboarding. Once these users have success with EUC solutions, then over time, administrators see the value and they add more and more personas. So in practice, that means they often start with contractors and partners, where on and offboarding can happen at any time or in waves, and where the relationship is typically third party. Then, we'll often see customers add temporary or seasonal workers. In enterprises, this may include an acquired company during a merger or acquisition, or in training and education, perhaps these are students in a learning lab. Then we'll see more and more remote full-time employees being added. Remote meaning they're could be in a satellite office without IT support, or perhaps temporarily remote during a disaster recovery event. Or they could just be that typical traveling employee and they need to get access to do their work. Finally, we'll see companies going all in with their corporate staff, leveraging the benefits that come with increased security and cloud economics and the built-in benefits of data backup and easy remote access that comes with the products in our portfolio. So let's talk about delivery options for desktops via Amazon Web Services end user computing solutions, and why you would consider persistent versus non-persistent desktops. Persistent desktops through Amazon WorkSpaces is designed for users that require complete control over their desktop environment, including the ability to add additional applications outside the base image. These users tend to be power users, executives, user groups where administrative rights are enabled. A majority of their day is spent on the desktop. AWS also offers non-persistent desktops. The non-persistent desktop is designed for task and shift workers or other user groups that typically don't have local admin rights. In other words, IT prefers to have these devices locked down. Some examples include call centers, back office operations, or the highly mobile users that are task-oriented with lots of log on and log offs, sometimes like what you see in healthcare or shop floor employees or retail attendants. Well, we talked about use cases and delivery options, but let's dive a little deeper. Let's get more specific about the personas and the journey. Let's start with the task worker. Perhaps they're in a contingent call center and they're using the desktop experience that perhaps can run on a standard bundle or have low hardware requirements. They're needing to access a lot of web applications and they have low compute intensity applications that they're accessing. These workers tend to work on tools that they are given. They have very specific operation models for some general purpose applications, kind of like data entry. These workers can typically use our standard bundle of Amazon Workspaces or our general purpose instances on Amazon AppStream 2.0. Well, then there are the knowledge workers that generally are using the Office suite of products. They can probably get by with Amazon Workspaces Performance Bundle, running Workspaces, something to run their core applications. But they are still expecting a full desktop experience with some variety of applications over time. Then you have the specialist and the remote workers. They may have some higher requirements. You may hire them to do a marketing program and they may need some higher graphic capabilities. So in that situation, you can spin off a graphics workspace or use Amazon AppStream instance if you're only looking to run one or two graphics applications. These situations tend to be users who are bringing their own device or the device that is provided to them is by a third-party agency. They're going to expect to have a more full desktop experience where they can customize their tools and perhaps with things that are not in your library of applications. Well, I'm very excited to share a story with you about Amazon.com's journey for Amazon Workspaces. What started out as trying to solve a merger and acquisition use case became a much larger project. And while the case study notes 25,000 Amazon Workspace users managed by 2 administrators, the project has dramatically increased over the last several months in response to some changing business conditions. Many of our organizations are now allocating workspaces by default rather than sending out physical assets. So, let's tell you a little more about this story. It started off that the Amazon client engineering team, the one that manages and supports IT services within Amazon, well, they're responsible for managing the company's devices for hundreds and thousands of employees across the globe. Several years ago, a growing number of contractors in the U.S. and worldwide needed fast, secure access to desktops to perform their work. To accommodate these workers, the client engineering team needed to strictly control access to specific internal sites. The client engineering team also spent a long time configuring and shipping laptops to these workers and sending laptops to remote sites. But sometimes those devices were held up for inspection and customs, and this would result in site launch delays, and sometimes security concerns would be in order because of having these Amazon assets leave our custody during the shipment. Well, once these laptops reached their destination, then contractors used VPN to access the corporate network, and there were often latency issues. It just wasn't an efficient or frugal way for us to onboard contractors. Amazon WorkSpaces became the model for onboarding new remote employees, contract workers, and subsidiaries. Well, the reason why this happened is because we started seeing the benefits that Amazon WorkSpaces provides as a managed desktop as a service solution. We can provision the desktops in minutes versus provisioning the 3 months that it used to take. And because Amazon WorkSpaces is accessible over the internet from anywhere in the world, this makes it easy. Based on the initial success of the contractor program, the client engineering team expanded the use of Amazon WorkSpaces following a company acquisition in India. By using Amazon WorkSpaces, the team was able to onboard the new employees very quickly using Amazon WorkSpaces. The number of users grew from 70 to 2,000 once the team saw the benefits of simplified deployment with Amazon WorkSpaces. Amazon today is saving millions of dollars in onboarding employees because workspaces can be deployed in many different regions, and the solution circumvents the need for physical logistics like shipping hardware and building out network connections. Amazon Workspaces is expected to contribute an annual savings of more than $17 million. The scaling has exceeded to over 25,000 users, all supported by 2 Amazon engineers. Amazon Workspaces has become the de facto model for onboarding new and remote employees, contract workers, and subsidiaries, and we see this as a way to help client engineering be more agile and responsive to the business needs.
I'm Jeff Ferris. I am the tech leader for end user computing at AWS. I've been with AWS for about 6 years, and most of that time has been focused on the end user computing space, mainly around our workspaces and our AppStream products. Now, we have getting started guides and admin guides that will walk you through the console and help you actually launch our EUC services, but I wanted to spend some time today focused on what these services look like from the perspective of the end user. So let's take a look. Okay, we're going to start with Workspaces, and you can see I'm already logged into the Workspaces console. I have a couple of users that I've already created, and we're going to look at the demo user today. Now, I like to pre-populate my passwords when I'm doing a demo because otherwise I will inevitably type it incorrectly. So let's go ahead and start that connection. As you can see, it's just a standard Windows desktop. So I have access to my programs through the Start menu, just like any other Windows system. Now, on this environment, I have left user self-service enabled. So as a user, if I decide that I need a different compute type, right now I'm configured to use a performance bundle with 2 vCPUs and 7.5 gigs of memory. But if I wanted to increase that to 4 vCPUs and 16 gig of memory, I can do that right from the self-service menu, change compute type, pick that new type, and click Update. Now, as soon as I do that, as a user, it's going to kick me back to that Workspaces client as the compute type changes. It's going to take a couple of minutes for that to process. So we're going to look through the console to see some of the settings to enable or disable those user self-service settings for your Workspaces users. So on the console, you would go to Directories. Now for this one, we're using the A21 directory. Go to Actions and Update Details. Under User Self-Service Permissions, you can see that I've left all of these functions enabled. If you don't want your users to be able to change their compute type or change running mode between always on and auto stop, you can make those changes at the directory level, and they will apply to all users within that directory for your Workspaces environment. Now I'm not going to make any changes here, but let's go back and see how that's processing. All right, we can see now in the console that system status has changed to updating. It's going to take just a couple more minutes for that to finish. In the meantime, let's take a look at AppStream. Okay, on the AppStream side, I've already created 2 stacks, one that uses our application view and another that uses our desktop view. We're going to take a look first at the application view. And I'm going to go ahead and launch that in the native client. Once AppStream starts up, you'll see the application launcher. And from there, you can execute your individual applications. I'm using native application mode, so they actually show up just like borderless Windows apps. You can see individual icons in the taskbar. You can move them to different monitors. The only difference is these applications are running in the cloud. They are running on the AWS infrastructure. They're not running on the user's local endpoint. If we were to instead use desktop view, the user will get the view of an entire desktop. So let's take a look at that real quick. In the application launcher, you'll actually see the desktop view icon, but once an application is started, the user will receive a full Windows desktop. They can launch their applications from shortcuts on the desktop or by using standard program menu shortcuts. Now, this is a non-persistent desktop environment. With WorkSpaces, it's a persistent desktop environment. So with AppStream, any changes the user makes will be reverted when they go back and reconnect at another time. All right, let's see if that WorkSpaces update has finished. We can see here from the user interface, the update has succeeded. You can reconnect to that environment. And again, it's the exact same experience that the user had before. They've just now been updated to that newer hardware stack. They're now running that power bundle. We'll refresh the console here so that we can see that status. As you can see, it's available, which matches the user's experience. And as a reminder, WorkSpaces gives your users that persistent virtual desktop experience. Any changes that they make to their workspace will persist between sessions. Okay, I hope that gives you a quick introduction to the user experience behind both our WorkSpaces and our AppStream products. Now again, WorkSpaces is that full persistent desktop experience, while AppStream gives you a non-persistent application delivery experience with the option for a full non-persistent desktop. You can use these products together or independently. It really comes down to your use case and your user personas throughout your environment. So thanks for your time today, and Carla, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Now what? Here are some considerations for your organization to discuss as you plan your virtual desktop and application strategies. Think about these questions. Do you have existing VDI solution, and does it meet the needs of your company and your company's vision? Do you have third-party contractors for who you're buying devices or creating a security risk? How do mergers and acquisitions play into your growth plans? Do you operate in markets where you don't have local IT infrastructure or support? As you think about these considerations, I encourage you to take some next steps to consider getting started with Amazon AppStream 2.0 and Amazon WorkSpaces. Thank you for watching our session. Please take some time to complete our session survey.